Good morning. So, we are in Exodus 25, and we're going to start working our way through the tabernacle. Depending on what we run into, I might try and kick this thing into gear and just kind of move right along. Maybe a little skimming, we'll see. I've done verse by verse teachings on this. You can find it on YouTube or the Revival Church app, and you can get all you want of the tabernacle and all the pieces and how they work and how they symbolize different things. But we'll cruise along and we'll see what God has for us today. So, even though we kind of read ahead, I really figure like we stopped in verse 8 yesterday. And so, starting in verse 9, according to all that I show you, that is the pattern of the tabernacle, the patterns of all the furnishings, just so you shall make it. And so I've got a bunch of cross references here. I don't even know what they all go to. Numbers 25 and 26. Let's see here. Let's try 26:30. Wait a minute. Is this what I'm looking for? Oh, no, sorry. That's a different reference. Exodus 26. And so like in 26:30, according to the pattern that you were shown on the mountain. So again, Moses was shown something here. It's not just like God spoke it and Moses imagined it and wrote it all down. God showed him something in chapter 25, verse 40. So at the end of this chapter, see that you make them according to the pattern which is shown to you on the mountain. Now let's see here. Numbers chapter 8, verse 4. So if you like to put cross references in your Bible, this would be good little ones to write there. It says, now this workmanship of the lampstand was hammered gold, according to the pattern which the Lord had shown Moses, so he made the lampstand. So again, the patterns that he was shown. Now, Acts, the book of Acts, chapter 7. We'll hear what Stephen has to say about all this. Acts, Romans, Acts. Got a lot of Bible in my hand to flip through. Here we go. Acts chapter 7, verse 44. It says, our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he appointed, instructing Moses to make it according to the pattern which he had seen. Finally, the book of Hebrews chapter 8, verse 5. Here's Timothy, there's Hebrews chapter 8, one more page, verse 5. Well, it talks about in verse 4, it's the priestly service and the high priest, the gifts offered, and these serve, verse 5, the copy and shadow of heavenly things. As Moses was divinely instructed when he was about to make the tabernacle, for he said, see that you make all the things according to the pattern that I show you on the mountain. And so I think Hebrews hits the nail on the head. The final part that's important to us is that these things served as a example or a copy. See, the word copy there is the word example in like John 13:15 when Jesus washes the disciples' feet. I'm laying down an example for you. And it's interesting because even with the washing of feet, while some churches, and there's nothing wrong with it, and I've had people wash my feet before, and there's something humbling about doing that. But Jesus said, this is an example for you. It's the same word. And the idea is that I'm going to model something for you that's representative of something greater. Not that we should all have to go wash feet, because today that doesn't have the same implications as it did back then. Back then it was normal when you walked into a home, you washed your feet. And that it was a slave that would do that. A really low on the rung slave. And so for the master to wash the disciples' feet, well, that was mind-blowing. Today, when you wash disciples' feet, it's just so foreign to us. It doesn't have the attachment. It doesn't really mean the same thing to us as it did for them. But it was an example for us. And so you might think, well, this is a task for the kids, or this is a task we hire someone for that. Well, that's a good example of where you step in as a Christian and do those things. And so Hebrews 8:5, it says that the tabernacle was a copy, a model of something. And it says a shadow. And it's specifically the word there is a vague shadow. And so it's the idea is the tabernacle was supposed to be symbolic of something greater. And God showed Moses this, and he made the tabernacle according to it. And so what we find is a tabernacle is symbolic and a picture of the heavenly throne room, the heavenly scene, God's temple in heaven. And so all that leading up to, I said we'd try and cruise along, and I spend forever on one verse. So they decide to make, here we go, an ark of acacia wood. And it was 2.5 cubits in length, a cubit and a half in its height, cubit and a half its width. So this ark is about 2'3" tall and wide, about 3'9" long. They overlay it with pure gold, right? Should make a molding of gold all around, cast rings of gold on the 4 corners, so they can put the poles through, verse 13, of acacia wood. You shall put the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark, that the ark may be carried by them. The poles shall be in the rings of the ark, and they shall not be taken from it. And you shall put into the ark the testimony which I gave you. So the 10 commandments are going inside. And you shall make a mercy seat of pure gold, 2.5 cubits in its length, a cubit and its half in its width. You shall make 2 cherubim of hammered work. You shall make them at the 2 ends of the mercy seat, 1 cherubim on one end, 1 on the other end. And the cherubim, verse 20, shall stretch their wings over and cover the mercy seat with their wings. They shall face one another. They shall be toward the mercy seat, their faces. Put the mercy seat on top of the ark, and in the ark you shall put the testimony which I gave you, and there I will meet with you, and I will speak with you from above the mercy seat, from between the 2 cherubim which are on the ark of the testimony, about everything which I will give you in commandment to the children of Israel. Maybe that's enough for one day, as far as texts we're covering, because so we have the Ark of the Covenant. It's kind of a big deal. And you'll see that the main part of it's made of wood and then overlaid with pure gold. But the top of the ark was solid gold. Now, food for thought. If that ark lid was 1 inch thick, not crazy thick, but if it was 1 inch thick, because of how dense gold is, the mercy seat, the cover, would weigh 750 pounds. And in 2019, because that's when I wrote this note in my Bible, it would have been worth about $14.5 million. Don't forget yesterday's message, that all of this stuff was freely provided by the people. Everyone brought their gold. Remember, well, God provided, and hey, the people had the right mindset, right? God provided all the gold from the Egyptians. They knew that that money wasn't even theirs in the first place, that God gave them the money, and they were faithful with the money God gave them to use how God willed. And so they gave it back, in a sense, and they make this ark. Notice that it's carried by the poles. You weren't supposed to put it on a cart. You were supposed to put it on poles. They would bear it. Carts were given to the other tribes. There's 3 branches under Aaron. And so you got the 3 groups of his sons. And Kohath was in charge of the ark, whereas Merari and Gershom were in charge of other things. Merari and Gershom were given carts to bear those other things. Kohath gets no carts. This isn't the book of Numbers, I'm pretty sure, because they're the ones who carry the ark, and they only carry it. And we should be familiar with 1 Chronicles 13, where Uzzah has a cart on a wagon, and it begins to tip, and he touches it with his hand to sturdy it, and he dies. And so it's a good reminder. God gives us instructions on how he wants things done. They're not minor instructions. When we look in the New Testament, there is stuff in there about how to do church. Much of what we do today is just philosophy of, I think it's good this way. I think we like pews, they like chairs, whatever. Like much of it doesn't matter, but there are things that the Bible speaks clearly on. Qualifications for leadership, church order, and things that go on during the service, and if they go on, how they should go on, or if they should go on at all. Like 1 Corinthians 14 is a chapter all about church order. And so when God does give us order, we shouldn't just dismiss it. The poles were a big deal. And when King David decided to bring the ark up from Kirjath Jearim into Jerusalem, it was a big deal when they decided to put it on a cart instead of using the poles. And someone died because of it. And so we have here the ark, the mercy seat of gold, the rings for the poles so it could be carried properly in the way God designed. And notice it has these cherubim. Now we find the cherubim are always surrounding the throne of God. In the book of Revelation, we find these four-faced creatures there surrounding the throne room of God. And so God says, I'm going to meet with you and dwell here at the top of this mercy seat where the blood for atonement would be applied on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And in between the cherubim, surrounding God, there's where he would be. When they eventually move the ark into the temple, giant cherubim are in the room. So there's cherubim that fill the entire room, and then there's more cherubim on top of the ark still as the ark was placed in there. But God says he'll meet with you and will speak with you from above the mercy seat between the two cherubim which are on the ark of the testimony. And something, hopefully, as we move forward, going through the tabernacle, that it won't just be boring building instructions, but that we'll learn about the components, because there is some really beautiful stuff you can learn about the approach to the tabernacle. And that as you enter in, I'm jumping ahead, but whatever, you enter in the gate. And whether it was the temple or the tabernacle, the layout was the same, that the first thing was the altar of sacrifice, because you can't approach God at the mercy seat without the sacrifice being the first thing. After the bronze judgment sacrifice, there's a bronze laver, a place to wash up. It's a beautiful picture about how God doesn't catch clean fish. He catches them, then he cleans them. Sacrifice is made, then we have a cleansing station. It's not, I got to get cleaned up before I get to the Jesus, the sacrifice. It's no, sacrifice first, cleansing later. And then as you enter into the holy place, outside of the Holy of Holies, where the ark would be kept, it's beautiful. There's these pictures of the table of showbread and of the menorah, or it was just a lampstand, an oil lampstand. But as you get closer, the last place you get before you go in, it's the altar of incense. And incense always being a picture of prayer in the Bible. And so in prayer is drawing nearer and nearer to that holy place where you meet with God. So the Ark of the Testimony, where is it? That's a great question. Indiana Jones knows, the rest of us don't. But hopefully that was a good application of some stuff that we're probably all kind of familiar with. We know the ark, and some of this other stuff's going to be a little bit, more foreign to us. But tomorrow, hopefully the showbread, the lampstand, and we might even just make our way into the tabernacle. And again, we'll move a little bit more quickly, I think, as we pick up through the construction of the tabernacle. So there you guys go. God bless you. Have an amazing day. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow. If you know any teenagers, you should send them to youth tonight at my house. Starts at 7, doors open 6:30. I know you know someone. Send them this way. God bless you guys. Take care.